everyone, this is Chris with Homegrown How-Tos. We're going to go over today the making of a liquid malt extract brewing kit. And this particular one we got from Northern Brewer, and it's called Caribou Slobber. I'm just going to go over real quick what we have here that came with the kit. Obviously we have our freeze-dried yeast, we have a steeping bag, our specialty grains. This particular one calls for dry malt extract and liquid malt extract. And of course we have the hops that are required to brew the recipe correctly. Behind us here we have 2.5 gallons of water, and we're going to follow the recipe through this and kind of show you what all goes into brewing your own beer. So this is for a 5-gallon batch. So stay tuned. We're going to readjust the camera here, and we'll show you what all goes into brewing. Okay, so the first thing that it calls for is to steep the specialty grains in the 2.5 gallons of water until it reaches 20 minutes or 170 degrees. So we're going to turn this on. You don't want to turn it all the way up. We're going to get our specialty grains opened here. We've got our sleeve. And you get these, one end is sewn shut, so only one is going to open. We're going to get it opened up here. There we go. We'll just take our sleeve here. Smells good. And I always like to do this over the pot because you can I always forget my little bowl. Anyway, kind of do it over the pot, but you can take it and just kind of shake it, and this will get all the little crumbs and dust out. It's not necessarily something you want in your beer. Once you get that, take it, tie it in a knot. Set it down. Just go ahead and drop it straight into your beer. And like I said, we're going to let that sit, as the recipe calls, for 20 minutes or until the temperature hits 170 degrees. So we're going to get this, and we'll come back towards the end of it and we'll pick up from there. We wanted to show you this too. When we started, this water was the color of, well, water. And now, there's the bag dipping down in it, and you can't hardly see the bag once it gets down in there. It turns pretty dark, but it's actually a relatively, you know, it's a brown ale, but that's also a 3-gallon boiling pot, just so you know. While you're waiting on your wort and your specialty grains to get done steeping, before you add in your liquid malt extract, you want to go ahead and take it and soak it in a hot water bath. And what this will do is it'll warm up the entire thing. That's really thick right there, the extract is. If you take it and soak it in a hot water bath, it'll heat it up and it'll thin it down. It makes it a lot easier to get all of it out of the bottle, which you do want to do. You want to get every bit of that out of there that you can. So there's a little tip for you in the middle of this, but it's also something that you definitely want to do, and I'm pretty sure it's actually written in the instructions as well. Okay, so we've boiled our specialty grains for 20 minutes now. We're actually at 21. What you want to do is just take them and dip them down in there one last good time. Pull them out and just kind of let them drain. Now the one thing you don't want to do, don't squeeze the bag. Just let it drain. When it's done, you'll be okay. You don't have to get every last drop out of it, but it doesn't hurt to let it drain real nice and good. When it gets down to just a trickle, leave it be. And then what you're going to do is you're just going to throw these away. Okay, so we've got that. And now, what we're just going to do is we're going to bring this up to a boil. Okay? So once we get this boiling, we'll show you what it looks like right now. It's getting there. It's already moving around a little bit, but you can see it in there. It's getting close, but you want a full-out boil before we add the amber liquid malt and the dry malt extract. Okay, so now we've got our water that's been steeped with the specialty grains up to a good boil. What we want to do is we want to take it off of the heat and bring it over here. Okay. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to get this liquid malt extract. We're going to bring it over here. I never get the seal off of it. You definitely have to take this off of the heat before you do this. Now, one little thing is you don't have to so much worry about sterilizing everything when you're making the wort, because you're going to boil it all and that sterilizes it by itself. So when you do this, you want to pour it in, constantly stirring so it doesn't scorch. So we've got that. Remember, you want to get as much out of there as you can. And what I'll usually do is I'll take and some of this water that's hot that we've been boiling, I'll take it and just kind of spoon it back in here. And I'll put the lid on it. And I'll shake it up. And that just kind of gets a little bit of that last little malt out of there. You'll never get every bit of it out. But you can definitely get a lot more of it out than do it that way. Alright. Now, the recipe calls for the dry malt extract, which is this Bryce Sparkling Amber dried malt extract. Where you want to pour the other one very slowly, the liquid malt, this one you kind of want to do it quick. But the best way I've found to do this is just to take it, kind of get yourself a little whirlwind going here, and go to town. And you want to continue to stir this until all of this is dissolved. Can't see any more little white things floating on top, because it will create the white things. Then you're good to go. Alright. Now, this. They're spoon all the way down in here. Make sure it's good and stirred up. Remember, this is very sugary based, so you can never stir this too much. So we're going to bring this back up to a boil here. Be very careful when you do this, because you don't want to get it too hot. So the next thing we're doing is we're bringing this to a boil, and then we have to add at 60 minutes the first of our hops. Now the thing is that you don't add the hops until after the hop break. And if you don't know what that is, as you boil this, it'll get even more foam built up on the top of it. Okay? Now, the hop break is when that foam is built up, and it then gets to a point where it's rolling, boiling, and it starts to kind of soak up the foam by itself. That's when you start your 60-minute time. Be very careful. Watch your foam, the head that will develop on it, and if it gets too close to the top, turn your heat down and remove it from the heat. You can always go back to boiling it, and it won't hurt anything. Okay? And once you've got it maintained at that good temperature, then you can start your 60-minute time after the hop break. So we're going to let it get back up here, and you can see there's foam on top of it right now. But we'll show you what we're talking about with the hop break, and then we'll get to add our hops. Here's a little tip for you while you're waiting on your wort to get up to a boil. The old saying that a watch pot never boils is pretty true. But when you're dealing with this stuff, a watch pot also never overflows. And an overflow on this stuff is quite the unfun mess to clean up. So don't turn your back on it, because if it goes over, you're going to have a bad day. Your batch of beer will still be fine, but you've got one heck of a mess to clean up. If it does boil over, you definitely want to stop your boil, clean up the overflow, and then go back to it, because it's significantly easier to clean up right as soon as it happens. Okay, well, we hit our hot break, and what we did is we took our hops and we went ahead and put them in here, and they have expanded rather quickly, but they'll sit in there and boil in with all the proteins. You can add these straight in. In fact, I probably will on the next two. But if you put them in that bag, the little steeping sock, it keeps them from getting into your beer. You don't have to filter them out later. But you just want to keep it at a nice boil. Remember on your recipe, if it says, because this was the U.S. Golding hops, and these are for bittering. This is 60 minutes. Well, then you want to put it in at the beginning of your 60 minutes and start your timer. The next one is the Liberty hops, and those call for 45 minutes. Well, you want to put that in for literally with 45 minutes left to go, so that they get 45 minutes worth of boil time. And the same thing on the last one, which is the U.S. Willamette. They call for 15, so you want to put those in for the final 15 minutes of your boil. So we'll be back in about 15 minutes when we get to the next part where we're going to add in the next set of our hops to the thing. Quick reminder too, or tip, when you add the hops, that's when you really have to start watching for your boil overs for the first few minutes. Once they've been in there, they're not bad, but after the first part, you do. Alright, we're at the 45-minute point. We have our bag of hops pulled out, and we're going to add the second bag to it, which is the, which one is that? That's the Liberty. And we're going to drop those down in there. We'll take this, tie it back up. And remember I said this is where you want to watch for boil overs. I just added more hops. They're in there. Dump that back in. can get away with this because everything's boiling right now, so we still got plenty. Everything's more sanitary than what you would think. So the next addition calls for the U.S. Willamette hops, and those are aroma hops. And we'll be back with 15 minutes to go. Okay, we're back. We've got 15 minutes left to go, and this is when it calls for our last hops addition. So we're going to pull this out. Let the water drain out of it. Over here, and we'll untie this. Add our last addition of hops. Tie the bag back, and this was the U.S. Willamette hops. These are aroma hops. So we got that. Put it back in. Dump whatever drained out of there back in there. And in 15 minutes, we are done. Now that we've added our last addition of hops, and we're waiting on the final 15 minutes or so to get done. One thing you want to do at this point in time is you want to go ahead and get your materials and your fermenting stuff sanitized. This would include your airlock, the bung, siphon, carboy, funnels, anything that's going to touch it after it comes out of here. Next step, once we get it done here, is we're going to put it in an ice bath. And we'll get to that in just a minute, but this is a real good time to go ahead and start sanitizing all of your fermenting material that you're going to use during the primary fermentation. Alright, well, here we are. We have boiled our wort for an hour now. We've added all three of our different hops into it at the appropriate times. Now what we need to do is we need to chill the wort down to 100 degrees as quickly as possible. There's two ways to do this. You can make or buy a wort chiller, which runs a continuous flow through copper piping of cool water to draw the heat out of the wort itself, or you can do it the way we're going to do it today, and we're just going to use an ice bath in our sink. So I'm going to get this transferred over here, and we'll take a look at how this is done. Alright, well, we have our wort in the chiller, and we're going to get it cooled off as fast as we can. As you can see down here, there's ice in here, and it is full of water. You definitely don't want to just put the ice in there. The ice will keep the water chilled, and the problem is if you just put ice in there, it's full of air pockets. This way, with the water in there, the ice keeps it cool, keeps it chilled, it draws the heat out. Putting the lid on it keeps anything from getting inside of it, but it makes contact all the way around so that it's not just cold air that's hitting it, it's constant contact all the way around that's cold. And that's definitely something you want to do. So make sure that you get the water in there to go with it and not just ice. You can do this in your sink. You can do it in your bathtub. We've still got it. This is one of the big ice bags over here. And we only used about half of it here in the sink. But we'll keep taking the temperature here. And when we get to our target of 100 degrees, we'll add it in with our cold water that we've already got added to our primary fermenter. Okay. So we've chilled our wort. It's down below 100 degrees. Now what we want to do is get it into our primary fermenter. Situations will arise where some stuff comes out. If you dumped the hops directly into the wort, you saw us put ours in the bags, but you never know. So you're going to find a thin layer of sludge on the bottom. You don't want to dump that in here, but what you will want to do is take that and use this screen. All this is a splash guard for a frying pan, but it'll help catch the bigger stuff that's going into your primary fermenter, and it'll keep it from getting in there and possibly giving your beer a different flavor. So I'm going to grab the kettle here. to slowly pour this into our primary fermenter. Now this is one of those rare situations where water, or oxygen, excuse me, is fine. It's not a problem because you want to get it aerated, or oxygen gets the yeast brewing really well. And there's the thick sludge. Alright, well, now we need to get this filled up to our 5-gallon mark. And all we're going to do for that is just about half and half. We don't want it cold, we don't want it hot. And we're just going to keep filling it up until we get to that 5-gallon line. These big mouth bubblers are marked as to where they are. They're graduated. That's the word I'm looking for. Like I said, right now in this stage, oxygen is your friend. Afterwards, oxygen is your enemy. Okay, so we're at the 5-gallon mark. Now, what we want to do, remember we have wort, we have water, and we have more water. We need to get that all mixed up. So we're going to sit here for about the next 2 or 3 minutes and just kind of shake this and rock it back and forth. We want this all good and mixed up. And this will help aerate it too. Get some oxygen in here. Which is not a bad thing. We want to get it good and worked up. I think that ought to be good enough. Alright. We need to take a temperature reading on this. And as long as it is 78 degrees or less, we are good to go to pitch our yeasts. And right now, it looks like we're about 76. Alright. So we'll rinse that off. Grab a pair of scissors here. Alright. Where'd my yeast go? There it is. We'll take our lid off here. And we're going to put this in our sanitized water. Alright, we're going to cut the top of it. Alright, so we've got our yeast. This came with the kit. We're going to lightly sprinkle that in there. And we're going to let it sit there. You don't have to do anything to it. Just leave it alone. Alright, it'll rehydrate itself and it'll work its way out of there. And folks, we are done making our beer. The only thing that's left to do now is to let the yeast go to town and start doing its thing. So what we will do is we will take this, put that down in there, get it good and airtight. Then we've got our airlock that goes in the top of it. I'm going to take just a tiny bit of water. This jar is sanitized. That'll be good. Put our cap back on it here. Should level itself out. And there you go. About 76, 78 degrees is what our temperature is in there. And we'll come back and take a look at it later on and see if we're getting anything. Hi, welcome back. And what we have here is our beer has sat in the primary fermenter for 2 weeks. And it is now time to rack it into a secondary fermenter where it'll spend the rest of its time until bottling day. And we've got the siphon going, we've sterilized everything. This process is actually relatively short. We've got it propped up to get us a little bit of an angle. And we'll get the siphon down here in this bottom corner because it's tilted the furthest forward. And we're just going to let it go in there, leaving as much sediment as everything else as we can in our primary fermenter. So that's the next step. Once you get it in there, you'll put your airlock and your bung back on it for about 2 weeks, and then it'll be bottling day, and we'll come back and we'll get some video on that as well. Hi everyone, welcome back. This is Chris with Homegrown How-Tos again. We spent the last couple of little sections of this video going over brewing beer. We siphoned it into our secondary, and now it's bottling day. So we've gone all the way through the whole process. So what we're going to do here is we've got our corn sugar boiling in some water. We've already sterilized our bottles, our caps, our equipment. And we did that just to save some time. But anyway, we'll move the camera here just a second. We're going to get to the siphoning process, because what we need to do now is we're going to take the corn sugar, we'll add it to the bottom of our bucket. Alright. So we're going to take this, our corn sugar, it's dissolved, the whole packet that came with this kit is dissolved in 1 cup of water. I'm going to add that into the bottom. I would say, in case you haven't done this before, make sure your valve is closed on your bottling bucket. Alright, we've got our bung and stopper. Take this off. Alright, now, like I said, we've already done our sterilization. Drop that right down in there. Remember, moisture is not your friend. Or moisture. Not what I was meant to say. Oxygen is not your friend. And when you do this to sterilize the inside and the outside of your equipment. And we're going to stand here and just kind of hold this until our bottling bucket gets filled up, and then we'll be back. Okay, so we're back. Well, we have got everything ready. We are loaded in the priming bucket or bottling bucket, and now we're going to take our bottling one and we're going to make our first bottle here. It's actually pretty simple. Get the air out of it, After you do, push it down in there, let it rise. By the time it gets to the top, pull up. And there you go. That's all there is for that part. Now we're going to have to figure something out here with that because it's not cooperating. But then all we're going to do is, give me a second, we're going to reposition the camera. But instead of making you guys watch us do all 50 of these bottles, we're just going to show you on the one. But you can come over here. As you can see right there, we've got our caps. So we'll take one cap. You can do this one or two ways. You can set it directly on the top, or you can set it right here on the magnet. Take it, put it on there. There you go. It is crank down. It is tight and it ain't moving. And you have a bottle of beer. Yeah. So I hope you guys have enjoyed what you saw. We went from the whole process where we started out brewing the beer, moving it to the secondary, and now we're all the way down to this. And the reason I'm using a clear bottle here is simply so you guys can see the finished product. Once we get going, I'll switch over to brown bottles. But if all you have is clear, it won't hurt anything. You just want to keep it out of the light. So in 2 weeks, you'll be ready to go. The beer is carbonated. Everything is done. So happy drinking. Be safe. Be responsible, of course. But that's how easy it is to brew your own beer. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you've enjoyed the video. And don't forget, if you like the channel, click subscribe. If you have any comments about what you'd like to see us do, let us know, and we'll try and do one and maybe a different kind of beer that we have a lot of suggestions for the same thing. So thank you again for watching. Enjoy.